Welcome back. Today is time to take the shelves down. We're going to take all these shelves down in here, and then following up in the next couple days, all this plaster is going to be taken out and shoveled away. So let's get started. There's some really cool pieces in this. We had some hand cut brackets. They look like they were done with a hatchet that hung over the bench. It had holes all along it to hang tools. We had this little rack that hung next to the door that were hand whittled pegs and augered out holes. Repurposing of some old furniture, most likely. Is this beautiful pattern that hung over the shelf, hung over the bench that was over here. This very sketchy looking ladder thing that hung in the corner there. The damage from this, that's all right here that got patched. This bench has always been here. This is an old gate hinge that has teeth put in it. Those teeth are so that you can put a board here and plane against, also known as a planing stop. But when I found this bench, it was tight against the wall. So that means every time someone planed through, they slammed the end of the plane into the wall and punched a hole in the wall. So they patched it. There's a bunch of old beautiful pieces of drywall leftovers. We're going to try to use what's left here to identify the colors and shapes and see if we can find a matching one for the future to put back on the wall in this back room. While taking out this window, I had noticed some interesting things about it. One of which being these little push buttons. There's one on the inside, down right here, that is operating. And what that does is that releases the window, allowing it to raise and lower. And in these, there's these notches, and that allows you to stop it every so often. So another neat little thing that was done back in the day to show how things were done and how we make them work. So if I were to push this button here, I should be able to raise the window. It's hard to do one-handed. But see, now it's raised a little. So these windows are shot, but we'll make new ones. Another neat thing is they grooved out this track where this piece of wood is, which is notched out for the button. And all of this is all notched into this plank just so that this window is nice, and it still seats nicely in this track after all these years. It's not the same case for this one over here, because this window used to be a doorway. And if I back up, you can see the difference. You see how this sits lower, this one sits lower than this one? This one was originally a window, and then someone later converted an old doorway and filled in the bottom here to make it a window. Same happened for this back door here, but I've already knocked out this little stub wall that's left. This originally was a window too. Here's what the second mechanism looks like. It's a little recessed button. There's this plank that's in front of it right now, but this pushes in and again notches into these notches here along the window, allowing for you to raise and lower it to the position you desire. I'm going to try to salvage these and see if I can find more to put on the future windows of the building. What's neat about this far window is that it doesn't have the release buttons to raise and lower it up and down, which some of these windows had little pull tabs that were in the window frame itself, but I don't even see holes that would tell me about that. On day 2, we had Steve Hutchins, the blacksmith from Billie Creek Village, come out and help us remove some of the plaster from the walls. You're going to see a lot more of him as he helps me through the process of moving this building. Welcome back, day 2. So far we've gotten all the plaster down on this wall section. And what's kind of cool about this plaster is it is all done with old horsehair. So this is all horsehair plaster. So they took horsehair and mixed it in with the plaster, and that helps keep it together. As you can see, it's keeping this piece together quite nicely. So as we're knocking all of it down, this section over here, you can still see some of the horsehair sticking out of the wall, holding pieces together. There's a couple big clumps, like a big fuzzy right here. It's holding all of this together. So it keeps it all from sloughing off in one big piece. Why it's taken so long to chunk it up into these little chunks. But we're gonna keep moving. Historically speaking, plaster dates back more than 25 centuries to the Romans. And up until the end of the 19th century, it was lime plaster, where then it was shortly replaced by gypsum, where plaster inevitably ended in the 1930s and 40s, replaced by drywalls and other sheetrocks. Plaster is a great building material, for it can be applied to curved and flat surfaces. It provides strength to walls, it's fire resistant, and it helps keep pests out of individual rooms or from getting into the house. Lime plaster is made of 4 ingredients: quicklime, some sort of aggregate, usually sand, a fiber, usually hair, animal hairs specifically, and water. This is then mixed and placed onto the wall in 2 to 3 coats. The first layer is the one that they pushed and made the keys into the lathe. And the second layer was a smoothing layer, possibly even a third layer of whitewash was usually used. But in this case, it looks like there were just 2 layers between the key and outer. Along with that, you can still see the horsehair that's in this that they used, or animal hair. One of the things on this channel that I'd like to do is go into a deep dive on some of the history of the equipment, the industry, and things that would have influenced the construction of this building. So one of the things in a future video or in this video I want to talk about is plaster, and mainly lime, where lime came from, especially in the local area, most likely where it would have come from. And I believe I found a cool location not too far from here that would have supplied the original lime to make lime plaster. Day 3. So far, we've knocked down about half of the ceiling, and we still gotta clean it all up. All of these still have nails in them, so we still gotta get all the nails knocked out. They're all old square nails. That's cool. We're gonna try to salvage as many as we can and salvage as many of these laths as we can so we can put them back up on the new building. So far we've gotten quite a ways. Walking around in here can get a little dangerous. You have a lot of nails sticking up, and if your shoes aren't thick enough, these nails will get you, but they are pretty small. But we have found a couple of artifacts that were up in the attic. So you got this little gooseneck looking thing. Not sure what it is. Also got this. So, a couple neat things that have come out of the attic so far. We've been tearing into some of the studs over here and found that they're pretty solid all the way down to the ground. So that's always good. I also found on this wall over here, we found chunks of newspaper still sticking to this wall. All of this is old newspaper. Here's a couple pieces of what looks like wallpaper over top of that newspaper. There's a good chunk. So we're gonna try to see if I can look at what those are, and I'll put them up on the screen if I find them. Similarly, this wall also had some. You can see a little bit right there. A little bit, not too much. This would have been very similar to the other piece over there, but when they knocked this mid-wall down, they chopped at it with an axe to get it as flush as they could to the wall. But that roof is in really good shape. And up in the attic, we had these awesome timbers. These guys. These are 20, I think they're 24-inch wide planks. They're close to, I think, 10-foot long. Poplar. All circular sawn, which means that saw blade had to have been massive. And a couple other loose planks. There's some more up there, mainly where this plaster is still left. We just couldn't reach the plaster due to the planks, and they're nailed down. I wanted to show some of the finds that we found up in the attic and around the building. So we found a lot of this old cloth, this ribbon cloth up there, along with this really cool gooseneck something or other. I have no clue what this is. If you know what it is, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to know. My theory is the end of like a curtain rod maybe, or something, but would have clamped onto something, has little pins on the inside, has a screw hole. We also found this. I have no clue what it is. Definitely would have screwed and mounted somewhere. Mounted in two different directions too. So, unsure. Got probably a fuel level. So this is cool. It would have had probably a cork on here. And it has different markings on it, like 3/4 and empty. It's a little jammed up and full. But I also found an old hand plane that was all chewed up. It's been real chewed up. I still have the iron, and I plan on making a replica of it at some point, of what it would look like completed, not in this state. I also found some really cool old boots. Some really old boots. But they have solid leather soles on them. Some seem to be rubber heels, I think. But really cool boots, couple old crates. We found some other things, but this was really the cool stuff. Found some old cloth concrete bags too. But so these were the majority of the newspaper clippings that I could get off that plank. They were glued on, and as you can see with some of these examples, they're also glued onto a piece of old wallpaper. So these are some of the clippings with what they say and what they are. So we got a lot of interesting things. We also found this up in the attic, which is part of a letter or something that got stamped, which also has a bunch of cursive written on it. Haven't quite figured out a way to clean it up enough to look at it. But the coolest thing here is I have a date that I'm attributing to this building on when it was built. And that date was found on this newspaper scrap on the header. So that's an R without a dot, because that's the little tail of the R. So it's one of the last 4 months of the year, with it being the 13th of 1876. And knowing how things are built, I would say it's probably September, just because you'd want to get all this up before winter and the cold started to set in a little bit. So that is our official date that I'm going to call this building. Thanks for watching, and keep your eyes out for part 3.